Welcome to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Janine Hershkovitz, and it's my goal to help you create a more peaceful home while living with autistic and neurodivergent loved ones. Each episode, we focus on a different room in the house and help you create a peace plan for your home. So let's get started. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. Today, we're in the classroom, that bustling hub of learning where chaos meets creativity. I'm your host, Janine Hershkovitz, and I'm excited today to have the wonderful licensed marriage and family therapist, Catherine Scott, joining us once again. But before we do, I want to give a shout out to my teachers who listen and to thank you for your incredible dedication to our kiddos. Your job is not an easy one. And we here at Autism Blueprint appreciate the job that you're navigating, particularly right now in the US. Your jobs are so important, particularly in the special education and inclusion spaces. So just wanted to give you a shout out and tell you that we see you and we are very grateful. As we dive back into the back to school season, we're going to be exploring in this episode the unique challenges that many children, especially those who are neurodivergent, face in the school environment. So we'll be talking about sensory overload to navigating the complexities of 504 plans and IEPs. And we'll be picking Catherine's brain for insights and practical tips to help parents advocate for their children effectively. So whether you're a seasoned pro at school drop-offs or just trying to figure out how to make lunchtime less overwhelming, this episode is packed with valuable information for you. Let's get started. Catherine Scott, welcome back to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. It's always a treat to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you. I'm glad you're with us. So today we're going to talk about some back to school stuff. Yeah. So here in Florida, our kids have already gone back to school. They go back the end of August. And so a lot of the rest of the country is either already back or going back. And we thought it'd be a great idea to pop on today and talk a little bit about some tips and things that Catherine and I have found in the office that are, let's start with talking about just schools in general. What do you find, Catherine, that schools in general or parents in relation to the schools have the most trouble with? Where are you seeing the most pain points, so to speak?
I mean, outside of our education system and schools just being a large dumpster fire at the moment, it's really just the intricacies of trying to navigate a system that is underfunded, undertrained, just overwhelmed to the brim, and trying to establish a uniqueness for their child, especially if for a kiddo who doesn't necessarily fit in the box.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one. So those are the kiddos we're talking about today. The kids that don't quite fit in the box, which seems to be a lot more kids nowadays.
I mean, who really fits in a box? I've never understood this framework, but here we are.
Tell me a little more about your disbelief.
Well, humanity is such a spectrum, right? And so especially when we have kiddos who are within the neurodiversity spectrum, it's like oil and water. We are trying to force uniqueness to mold, which again, there's a time and a place for, but also life happens, and everybody's different. And especially like we're coming off of a time where there's more flexibility, there's more room to be able to utilize tools and techniques that work for you. And then all of a sudden you're thrust back into a space that has overwhelming lights and just overwhelming sensory stuff, and you can only eat here and you can only go to the bathroom here, and then you can forget to drink water because there's so much else going on. It's just a lot.
Oh yeah, it is. It really is. So let's start there. Let's start with the sensory challenges. What are a school can be, it's not always, but it can be a sensory nightmare in some areas, particularly like you said, the cafeteria. What are you seeing are the issues and what can be the remedy?
I think the issues are individualized, but the themes that I see are the fluorescent lights. They're really just not kind to anybody, but especially to our neurodivergent population. The overcrowded hallways, trying to get from one class to another, can be very overwhelming. And just, we get into a crowded hallway and we are bound to be touched and poked and prodded and shoved, and that can just send our kiddos over the edge and into oblivion. And then not being able to access maybe like their regulation snacks or the crunchy stuff, or be able to chew gum or use that fidget at a time where we encourage our kids to listen to their bodies, but then school tells them to only listen to their bodies when it's appropriate for them.
Hmm. How do you encourage kids and their parents to help with those issues?
Five 504 plans and IEPs.
Which
Just
we do still
because
have. We do still have those, by the way, in the
we
United States.
do.
Thank goodness.
And so it's tough because schools are so overwhelmed right now that it's very difficult to go to a individual teacher and be like, hey, can you create this safe space? Because a lot of the times these teachers just don't have time, they don't have the resources, they don't have the training or the support to be able to do that. And so 504s and IEPs mandate that the schools and the teachers have to. So 504s and IEPs almost give teachers permission slips to be able to meet your child where they're at. That's really how I like to phrase it. And so I'm a big advocate for please petition for a 504 if there are, accommodations and needs that would support your child in being able to illustrate their knowledge to their full potential.
I love that. So for those that aren't familiar with what a 504 is, how would you explain it?
Sure, it's an accommodation plan for your child based on their needs, and so a lot of the times they can come about for a need to support for ADHD, autism, anxiety, physical health related issues, things like if your family or child's going through kind of a tough transition part of their lives, and it's something that is by law necessary for the school to abide by.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of hoops to jump through. It can be very helpful to have an educational advocate kind of by your side, helping you navigate all of those things. But schools typically start with a 504, and then there's an RTI system where there's 3 tiers. And after you kind of work through the 3 tiers and your child still is requiring more accommodations or support, you can be evaluated for an IEP, which is an individualized education plan.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for explaining that. And if a parent doesn't have a 504 or an IEP for their child, how do they go about starting that process?
Sure. And so it really depends really what the diagnosis of your child is. Typically within our practice, um, I I write a bunch of 504 petition letters that parents can submit to the school, largely just saying, hey, this is, kiddo XYZ. They have been diagnosed with XYZ and they are working with me in mental health counseling. And so it's within my professional opinion that they, you know, are petitioned for a 504 to be able to have accommodations within the school place to best support their learning.
Okay, so as far as if we take that concept back to a noisy cafeteria, for example, what kind of accommodations can be provided for those kinds of issues?
Being able to go eat lunch somewhere else. Cafeterias are really not the place for anybody to regulate or be
Yeah.
able to have a space to catch their breath. And so a lot of the times I have kiddos be able to go eat in the classrooms with a safe teacher or
Mhm.
go to the library and eat or be able to even go to clubs. Like I love there's a private school right now, it's Episcopal in our area, and they allow for kiddos to go to various clubs during lunch. So
Oh, I love that.
not only is it a time to be able to maybe attend to a special interest, but also to build community in a way that isn't so overwhelming.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. So, I mean, there are tools at schools' disposal that they could, take advantage of and just think
Oh,
a little bit outside the box.
absolutely. And, as long as the child doesn't abuse the system, which I honestly have never experienced that before,
Right.
schools do have the ability to be creative.
Yes, that's funny because that is an excuse we hear a lot. Well, we don't want them to take advantage of the system. Well, I mean, that's kind of silly. How many kids do you know are like, please give me an accommodation so I stand out from my peers? You
Right.
know?
It's I will do whatever I can to not be miserable. Thank you. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, Kat? I think that just kind of dovetails into the idea that sometimes we don't treat children we don't presume their competence, even neurotypical children. We don't think they can make their own decisions.
Or make the right decisions. I
Yeah.
think sometimes if a child is dubbed as a behavioral issue or a kiddo who maybe has made a mistake behaviorally before, they
Mhm.
automatically get the dunce hat saying, "Oh, they are doomed to making poor choices," where in actuality behaviors and acting out are ways to illustrate things that the child is unable to use words or language for. So, a lot of the time, I always encourage parents, please don't get lost in the trees when you're trying to look at the whole forest. Just as play is a child's native language until they're 12, so is their behavior. Their behavior illustrates things that maybe they don't have the words for yet, or they don't have the language to be able to convey in a way that they feel like they're going to be seen.
That's a really good point. Could you give us an example of a behavior that might fit into that?
Getting out of their seat,
Yeah,
having
that's a
the
big one.
wiggles. A lot
Yeah.
of the time, anxiety and excitement they live in the same part of our brains. And so, let's say the first few weeks of school, your kiddo has the wiggles, and the teacher has told them, 17 times, so and so, please go back to your seat. And then all of a sudden, I've had parents get phone calls the second day of school and for younger elementary kiddos, and it's like, what are you expecting? Like
Right.
they're excited and they're anxious, and this child, oh my gosh, like they actually have anxiety. And so it's not dubbing a child as an issue right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's just so important. What kinds of issues do you see the most of the first couple weeks of school?
Mhm. Oh, separation anxiety,
Mm.
anxiety just in general of not knowing the routine or what to expect. Social anxiety, they go from being able to have autonomy over the people that they spend time with to being forced into spaces that maybe they don't socially know how to navigate with confidence quite yet.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think those are my top three.
Yeah. And those are some biggies. And so are there things that you're finding this time of year counseling parents on as far as how to handle it, or is that when they call you and say, "Come with me to my school meeting"?
Oh, it depends. And two, it's really encouraging the parents to remember that there is no such thing as perfection. Practice equals progress, and in the ways of adapting to a new school schedule. I mean, this is something transparently I've experienced with my own 2-year-old this year, is give the child grace. It takes a solid 3 weeks to a month for anybody to adapt to a new routine. And then when you slap on some neurodiversity onto that,
Mm.
there is no box for adaptability. It's something that is going to come when the child is ready, when the system is ready. And so not expecting perfection or not expecting your child to act like Sally down the street or
Yeah.
Jim Bob, who looks like he just has no care in the world and he makes straight A's because who knows what's going on behind the scenes there. And so having so much grace for your child, a lot of preparation, a lot of discussion around what's going to happen next, a
Mm.
lot of if then statements, cause and effect conversations. I mean, if you feel like you're a broken record, you're doing a good job.
100%. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Well, and I know that's a really good point you bring up that for a neurotypical child, well, and particularly a 2-year-old in your case, right? It took a couple of good weeks for
Solid
her
three.
to, yeah, a solid 3, right?
Mhm.
Was that surprising even for you?
Oh, it was jarring.
Yeah.
Janine, I'm still have a little salt towards you because you did not warn me. You did not warn me. That first day, I thought you would have thought I was handing her over to a baby napper. Um,
Her
it,
first time in preschool.
oh yeah,
So,
it was a time. But in that space too, I reached out to the teachers. I was quote unquote that mom, just being like, hey, let me know how she's able to maybe regulate throughout the days. She was able to take her emotional support teddy, and we watched maybe a few extra episodes of Trash Truck at the end of the day because Homegirl looked like she had lived at least 50 lives by the time we picked her up. But now, giving her all the grace, keeping the narrative the same, having a community of your own as a parent to be like, oh my gosh, this is gutting. I feel terrible or excited or relieved that they're in school, whatever the feeling is.
Hmm. Hmm.
And being able on your behalf to maintain consistency and as a safe place for your child, they're going to find their footing.
And how did you manage to do that? Like if you were to tell a parent how to be that safe place, what does that look like?
I think it varies depending upon the age group, but I think the more consistent you can stay in your narrative, the more consistent you can stay in the narrative of this is how we take care of ourselves. Because a lot of it is asking our child to go from co-regulation to, independent regulation.
Mm.
I think that's a very big transition during from summer to school that not a lot of people talk about. And it's something that I have kind of learned secondhandedly is our children go from leaning on us as parents to co-regulate maybe over the summer to now they're having to independently regulate inside of a school.
Yeah.
And so supporting that narrative and coming up with, man, like I know that you can be brave. I know how brave you are. It's okay to have big feelings.
Hmm.
These big feelings are very human, and I'm right here with you with them. And I'm going to see you after school. And here's the thing that we have to look forward to. And it's communicating we're a team, and you're not alone.
Yes. Oh, that makes all the difference, I think. And I think that when we take the focus off of your child behaving, right? I'm doing air quotes with that, behaving rather than you guys are a team, a self-regulation team.
Mhm.
Whether your child is neurotypical or neurodivergent, that's kind of the feel that you want to have.
Absolutely. You want home to be the space that they come back to and they're able to take that big breath.
Yeah.
And to have that time of really good job. You held it together. Let's go get the wiggles out. Let's go as my little lady does. She has a point where she just likes to scream, like let out one or two, and then she takes a big breath, and then I'm like, I'm here for it, girl. So on the way home, we just let it out in the car. We take turns screaming, and she is dying laughing. Because in any other circumstance, we talk about inside voices, but
Yeah.
after school, it's honey girl, let it out.
Wow. Gosh, you just made me think of how I probably need to keep that same attitude with my son, even though he's in his 20s, but autistic on a level 3. And sometimes there's a scream and I'll get mad and be like, what the heck are you doing?
Sure.
So you've just reminded me that sometimes that's the way that we let off steam.
Oh yeah.
I've told him he can't hit anybody, right? He can't break anything. So now what? He's got to have a replacement behavior.
Because big feelings equals big energy in our bodies. Whenever I'm working with little, I teach them that big feelings generate big energies. And so it's, and I always say there's three places that energy likes to come out: your mouth, your hands, or your feet.
Ah,
And a lot of the times we are conditioned to letting our big feelings out of our mouths. Like as adults, we like to yell or raise our voice. But with littles, I think it's a prime opportunity to recognize you probably have a big feeling in there. What do you want to do with it? Let me give you grace through this and let me be there with you through it.
I love that. And so, for the parents who are kind of already doing these things that we're talking about, and then their child has to go into a classroom where maybe they don't respect the sensory needs as much as maybe they should. Have you had issues like that with some of your clients, and how do you handle that?
Squeaky wheel turns the bus, or whatever that saying is.
Sure.
If this isn't my first time on this podcast, I think I say an unhinged saying every time, so that might be the one. But don't let the school's hesitancy or the school's pushback delay your advocacy. It's and it's something that you don't have to advocate in a rude way or maybe an abrasive way. It's really just, again, maintaining that consistency of, hey, let's be creative. What can we do to make sure that this need is met? You know, is it a discussion with the teacher? Is it, okay, I have to move forward with the 504 plan? Is it, you know, let's get onto the RTI system to be able to create more supports. I mean, it's really just advocating school to school because it's very different. What needs to be in place for my child's sensory needs to be permissible?
Mm, yes, yes, that makes so much sense. I've heard sometimes of teachers, especially elementary school teachers, just making accommodations in their classroom for that everybody can access. You know, like a sensory
Yeah.
corner or a, you know, something like that where because it's going to benefit everyone.
Sure. Yeah, and it's, you know, if there's any educators on this podcast too, really making the sensory corner deep pressure friendly.
Okay.
A lot of the time, sensory corners, they get distracted by the aesthetic
Yeah.
and lose sight of the purpose. And so with sensory corners, like I want a weighted stuffy, I want a weighted lap pad or a beanbag chair or a bungee chair. I want there to be somehow lower lighting, and maybe some fidgets, but actually like sensory fidgets. Not again, not a fidget spinner necessarily, but like the
Right.
one I'm noodling with right now, one that kind of takes force and dexterity.
I love that. I love that. Um, what kind of misunderstandings behaviorally can we run into? I know that very often our kids on the spectrum will have something that's interpreted as a misbehavior when it's really just trying to meet a need.
Yes, and I think a lot of our kiddos on the spectrum almost fall into the self-fulfilling prophecy that like if they have a bad day or if they let one behavior loose and it gets escalated, it's almost that fear that of judgment.
Mm,
So many of our kids are so quick to be judged and so quick to be categorized as a problem. And so and our kids feel it. Our kids know it. And
yeah,
so it's being able to presume the competence of the child and know that they don't have bad intention, and be able to have the conversation. I always encourage teachers, please talk to the kiddo, get
yes,
on the level and express curiosity versus judgment. There's such a different tone that goes into a conversation when you approach it with a what is this versus what the hell is this.
yeah.
And our kids feel it. Our kids are intuitive. And it's, you know, autism is a communication disorder, but it's also an intuitive part of communication too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Our kids are incredibly intuitive, and
Hmm.
they can always identify the teacher or the aide or the cafeteria worker who is judging them, always, and you don't have to even say a word.
And it might not even be judgment, it might just be lack of safe space. It
Mm,
may be discomfort or intimidation upon the teacher's behalf. It could be just lack of knowledge. It could
mhm.
be the teacher is triggered and is having counter-transference. And that's where I'm such a big proponent of just adequate training and supervision and support for educators too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I mean, what is your how hopeful is that right now? Are you seeing trainings for people? Are you aware of trainings for
Not in the state of Florida. The state
Yeah,
of
no.
Florida is a big disparity as far as education goes.
Yeah,
You know, it's a very uncomfortable time to have a child in school right now.
yeah, yeah, and I know that we in Florida can take advantage of, charter schools and private schools and things like that, which I know many of our parents do, and they, by law, don't have to follow an IEP or a 504, right?
Not privates. I know charters are held to different standards where a 504 or an IEP can be honored, but I know the system is different. But in private school, they don't have to abide by anything.
Okay, okay. Although I do know that many of the private schools do. in particular, in our area, I know that some of the kiddos we see have behavior plans in place in a private school or it's been impressive. It's at some of the schools, the lengths they're
Absolutely.
going to.
There have been private schools in this area that have completely warmed my heart, and some, schools that I really admire and appreciate. And then there's the other side of that spectrum,
Mhm.
um, which, again, is probably a different conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
I think too, it's important that if as a parent you're feeling as if you or your child is drowning, and being able to adjust and adapt to school, creating that community of support. Even if, therapists or what have you aren't available in your area, even like going on social media or, trying to find those groups, or even just within, the Autism Blueprint community, just being like, hey, like, what are some of the resources and knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. That's I would love to have you come into our Discord Patreon group and maybe answer
Yeah,
questions directly at some point. Wouldn't that be fun?
that would be a blast.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, so I'm thinking too, I mean, there's so many topics that we can talk about under this umbrella, but communication with the teacher, communication
Mhm.
with the school, and this kind of goes back to something you were saying about your own daughter who's 2, and while she can speak, she can't speak as well as you and I
Mhm.
can and communicate, right? And I find the same thing with my son. So any school that he had gone to, I would always have to make sure there was something in place where we
Mhm.
could communicate. Um, and
Absolutely.
sometimes it was a checklist, sometimes it was a calendar coming home, sometimes it was an email,
Mhm.
it would just all depend. In a perfect world, a teacher would let their special needs parents know what that system would be. I know, and from experience, that that doesn't always happen. So, how do you think parents can advocate better for the things that they need while still balancing, like, not being that parent?
I mean, I think at this stage of the game, it's almost worth being that parent. Um, just because, gosh, there's so much going on in the world, and especially just socially, right? Like there's AI and there's all this stuff coming about as far as how, socially that's being utilized to bully or get out of assignments and everything. And so I'm in the corner of advocating for parents, become that parent. And again, you can approach it with directness and compassion. You don't have to go in angry.
Yeah.
Again, like kind of model the communication patterns that you want adapted into your child's day,
Mhm.
because you are still the number one model. Even though that they're going to school, they're still observing and experiencing you communicate with the world. And so I mean, I slid into my kiddo's teacher's email that second week, and I was like, "Hey," so I let her have a week. And she's having a lot of anticipatory anxiety. Every time we get in the car, she is losing it, and it's an authentic losing it. Like we're hyperventilating a little bit. Like God bless her. Thank God she's a therapist kid because she knows what a big breath is. um, but I would, and be open to feedback too. It's whenever you communicate with the teacher, don't presume that you're wholly the expert.
Right.
Um, it just never goes well. Definitely leave room for other people's opinions and experiences. And so even though, as a therapist, I wanted to be like, I know what's right. I had to hold my tongue and just say, look, like this is what I'm doing in my wheelhouse. If you have any other feedback for me, I'm very open to it. And I really just want to gather all the information so I can best support her on either end of school days.
Yeah, that makes sense. So humility is what I'm hearing you say is important.
Yes, it's a dying trait, like chivalry is dead now. Humility is kind of
Humility is pretty
tanking.
much, yeah. Yeah. So let's model that so that our kids can see what that looks like.
Right.
Yeah. Um, how can we give parents some language around being present with their child in their strong emotions,
Mhm.
rather than trying to fix? And I'm guilty of this too, right? Even though I'm a therapist, when it comes to my own kids, when I'm like, tell me what's bothering you. And then they tell me, and then I immediately start jumping in with the
Right.
solutions, right? That's never effective.
Well, first, we need to recognize that if our heart rates are above 100 beats per minute, nobody really can access their prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain that helps you with logic, ration, and reason.
Mhm.
And so, really, our prefrontal cortexes aren't even accessible until we're the ages of 7 or 8. A lot of the time, our children live in their amygdala, which is their middle brain or their feeling brain. And so if there's ever a time that you feel you're in an argument with somebody, all of a sudden you feel like you sound like 7-year-olds, you probably do because your prefrontal cortex went, peace, bye.
Mhm.
So when our child's having a big emotion, their heart rates are elevated and they're very much thrusted into that emotional brain.
Mhm.
And so there really is no way to logic or reason with somebody whose part of the brain is already like probably prematurely developed and or inaccessible in that moment. And so what I tell teachers is don't jump into the toilet bowl with them. Sorry, I don't tell parents this.
Just
Our
the teachers.
children, yeah, I'm sorry. I tell them that too. But parents, listen, Janine, it's still kind of early on this end. I tell adults,
Yes.
don't jump into the toilet bowl with them. Our kiddos are swirling in a big emotion, and a lot of times we try to jump in and save them from it, which
Mm.
really just escalates it. And so I want you to almost visualize this is a funny visual, but visualize yourself sitting on the edge of the toilet saying,
Mhm.
wow, that looks really scary and overwhelming. I'm here with you. Let's get that heart rate calmed down. Let's do some deep pressure stuff. Let's focus on
Mhm.
regulation. Forget the
Mhm.
issue for the moment. I
Yeah.
don't care what they broke, what they maybe accidentally ate, or what I don't care what's going on in the world
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's no way to crisis it out until your kid can take a big breath. That's the number one crisis
Mm.
at first. Once they have the big breath, once that they are regulated, once that, or at least their heart rate is on the downward trend, then it's okay to hold that space of just tell me more.
Mm. Tell me more. Those are magic words.
They are.
Tell me more. That sounds hard.
Yeah.
And if you know what, if it's not hard, the child will tell you.
Oh, yeah.
They'll say, no, it's more like this.
Oh, I always tell adults,
Yeah.
um, shoot in the dark with the feeling. It's okay to say, man, it sounds like you're really frustrated because the kiddo's either not going to say anything or they're going to say, no, it was annoying or whatever, but they're still going
Yeah.
to give you that feeling word. And then you're going to be able to be like, oh, thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And
Um,
the more
go
practiced you become with this as well, the
ahead.
more predictable you're going to be to the child.
Mm, yeah. I mean, just when I think about, of course, I'm Gen Xer, but the way that the teachers and parents raised us, it was discipline and ask questions later.
Mhm.
Nobody cared about our feelings. Like nobody cared
Feelings
about
were the F
why
word,
we
Janine.
were.
We don't say them. We just move on.
Exactly. So it's interesting, as a parent, I've had to learn, a whole different way of communicating with my kids. And what's great about kids is that if the way that you're not interacting with them is not working for them, you'll know it. They'll
Oh,
tell
yeah.
you.
Oh, yeah. Straight up. They
Yeah.
do not care.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll tell you with acting out, with their behaviors. And, since we're taking little snippets of phrases, one of the phrases I heard recently was, your child isn't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time.
Oh, absolutely. Our kiddos rarely wake up in the morning and say, how can I make my parents' lives difficult? Haha, I like this. Like that would be sociopathic, right? Like
Yes.
many of our children are not that.
No.
If anything, they are very much stuck in their own perspective, which
Mm.
is normal.
Mhm.
Egocentricism is a thing and it's an important thing. But they're stuck in it. And so I always tell people you're not going to talk your kiddo out of their feeling and you're not going to talk them out of their experience. The thing that you need to do is to be able to hold that space, hold that experience, and then say, hey, this sounds pretty tough. Do you want some feedback? Do you want some help?
Yeah, I love that. You know, you used a term earlier, countertransference.
Mhm.
Now, you and I, as therapists, know what countertransference is.
Doesn't everybody?
It doesn't everybody? And you're going to explain it in a second. But what struck me about that was, wow, I never thought about that in relation to parenting. That's what's happening. Tell us about countertransference.
Ah, oh, that happens like at least 5 to 7 times in your day when you're raising a child. Anything that you've ever stuffed in a closet or tried to forget about or wanted to move on from, it all comes roaring back when you have a kid. And so, that's the powerful thing about children is they really help you straddle this line between the past and the present. And sometimes our child's behavior or actions or words can throw us back to a time, even throw our bodies back to a time that was difficult for us. And so countertransference is when we are distracted by our own stuff after experiencing something from another.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think an example that I can give you just from my office, and when I do trauma therapy with people, often people are coming in at the time they're coming in because their child just had a birthday, and the age they just turned was the age that the parent was when their trauma happened.
Mhm.
And so very often they won't put those pieces together. They won't think that that had anything to do with it until I take a history and point it out to them at some point, and then a light bulb goes off. So very often we don't even know why we're so keyed up about something. And
Absolutely.
I often ask parents when I'm helping them with their parenting, when was the last time that you felt like your reaction was way over the top
Mhm.
of where it reasonably maybe should have been? And that's kind of where you can start digging. If people are wondering, like, where's my countertransference? I always say, take a look at what your big feelings are when your child does something. Um,
Oh, absolutely. And I always also like to interject too, like, when are the times that your child hurts your feelings?
one.
Because what is that bringing up? A lot of the times, and it gets to the best of us, our kiddos hurt our feelings. Even though, again, the intention is not geared and it's not personal.
Yeah.
Our children's behaviors really aren't personal. They're just a way of trying to communicate. And so, being able to explore too, well, what about that action, that word, that thing hurt?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think one of the biggest struggles that I had when my kids were in school was that transition from school to home, and the transition from home to school in the morning, like the physical transition.
Mhm.
Getting the kids out the door, getting them settled when they come home, and then there's homework. What, like, help with what do we do? How do we make these things smoother, better? I mean, it's what
Well,
most parents are talking about right now. It's like, oh my gosh, I had to get my kids off to school this morning. It was like herding cats.
and when school is somewhere that they dread or they feel unsafe, that can definitely fuel it. The more predictable and the more success the child can experience at school, the easier that morning routine is going to become. And so in the morning, also, it's really just a reminder of like, we're a team. And no matter what experiences you have during the day, we're going to be a team at the end of it. So, and it's becoming practice too. I'm a big proponent of setting your kids up for success. I still brush Harper's legs every morning and every night. It's a PT thing. I feel like our neurodivergent community might know about brushing. And
Yes.
so it's making sure that they have the meal that's going to get them going and make sure that they're properly hydrated and they've got the right shoes and socks and clothes laid out the day before and the teddy's already packed in the backpack. It's almost like all you have to do in the morning is get up and go. It's alleviating as many pressures as we can for the mornings, and then in the afternoons know that they're going to come home with a lot of bottled up stuff. And so it's funny, like whenever we get home, my kiddo is like, mommy run, and we run a lap around the neighborhood. It's a half-mile lap that we literally sprint right when we get home every day. Is that the thing that I want to do right when I get home in blue jeans? No.
In
Does that
90-degree weather?
right? Does that matter?
No,
No.
no.
Because what happens is she's like, "Mommy, I gotta go regulate.
Yeah, yeah,
Mommy, my body needs this." But she's not gonna use those words. She's gonna be like, "Mommy, run." Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Yes, exactly. Or mommy, I need a big hug.
Hmm.
Or in our house, my son would come home, strip down, jump in the sandbox outside,
Oh yeah.
rub around in the sand, jump in the pool. Like he knew what he needed to do to
Hmm.
calm his nervous system.
Follow their lead. 9 out of 10 times, they know what their bodies need. Outside
For
of
sure.
screens, no screens for the first like 15 to 30 minutes upon arrival at home.
Ooh, say that again. No screens.
No screens. So screens are a dopamine hit. And so screens can fuel that addictive of like, I need this in order to feel better. And we
Yeah.
want to teach our kiddos like you actually have all the tools that you have. Like you already have all the tools that you need in order to feel better. You don't need a screen. You don't need a device. And also it's really hard to go from like, you know, sensory overwhelm to like sensory overwhelm in a different way.
Yeah.
I would rather kiddos kind of like glide into it. Going from school to screens is like trying to drink like a Monster or Red Bull after school, where like when you're trying to wake up, and then going from school to like no screens for the first 15 to 30 minutes is like trying to drink tea when you're waking up. It's just gentler.
What a great analogy. That's
Thanks.
really good. I like that. And we know that you do not allow monster drinks in
No,
your office.
monsters are bad. Those are no-nos.
No monsters for you.
No monsters in any way.
Homework. I have recently heard that the most recent research on homework shows that the benefit of learning the skill the homework is supposed to teach is often not achieved due to the emotional dysregulation of having homework for
I
little.
still don't get the concept of homework. Quite honestly, our kiddos are there for 6 to 8 hours a day doing homework.
Absolutely.
To come home and do that again, I don't get it. And that's where 504s and IEPs come into place too, because there are homework accommodations that you can have. You can say they need to do half, or they have time and a half to turn it in, or like breakdowns of projects. Like there's so many different homework accommodations that can be in place for children. I highly recommend it.
Mhm.
Because again, homework is something that I think is necessary to refresh and to remind. So I think homework is necessary when you're like studying for a test. You're
Yeah.
trying to retain, right? Retention is helpful with repetition. But trying to learn a new skill outside of school, please.
Yeah.
That's like your boss saying, "Hey, do this training on your off time." Would you want
Mm,
to do that, or would you like to get paid for it?
that is a fabulous analogy.
I would rather be paid.
Oh, yeah,
So
for sure. For sure.
and on that note, I have to boogie.
No problem, honey. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Of
And
course.
we will very soon have you in our Patreon Discord group. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Autism Blueprint podcast. A huge thank you to the wonderful Catherine Scott for sharing her insights and expertise with us. Some takeaways from today's episode. Embrace the chaos. So, schools can be really overwhelming, especially for our neurodivergent kiddos. Remember, it's okay to feel like you are herding cats in the morning. It is okay to be stressed, and just take those deep breaths and keep the snacks handy. Advocate like a pro. Don't be afraid to be that parent. 504s and IEPs are your best friends when it comes to ensuring your child gets the support that they need. So think of them as your secret weapons, and don't be afraid to go back to your school, to your teachers, and ask more questions after you have meetings. Communication is key. So keep those lines of communication open with the teachers. Approach them with curiosity and compassion. And remember that you guys are on the same team. So, in doing that, you might just find a really great partner in navigating the school year. You don't have to be alone. Hold space for big feelings. Kids often express big emotions through their behavior. So instead of jumping in to fix things right away, try to just hold space for their feelings and remember that it's all about teamwork. And then transition smoothly. So whether it's getting out the door in the morning or winding down after school, creating predictable routines for your child and for yourself can make a world of difference. And don't forget, no screens for the first 15 to 30 minutes after they get back from school. So that's it for today on Autism Blueprint. If you would like to be my neighbor or even a house guest, check out our Patreon Discord community at patreon.com/autism blueprint. Your support keeps the porch light on. And a huge thank you to all of our current patrons. That's where we'll be having a Q&A with Catherine Scott in a couple of weeks, and that date will be announced very soon. So be sure to sign up for free there so you can receive updates via email about upcoming episodes and opportunities to connect. Thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.
The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional.